evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the south-afrifur podcast. You're listening to myself, Ivik Wolf, and my co-host, Scratch.
As always.
And our guest for this evening is Witchie Bunny. She is a staffer at Anthrocon, and we'll be talking about various con-related things. We'll obviously be talking about Anthrocon of this year, as well as some possible activism points that she has that may sort of touch furries. And I'm going to stop that quickly. Just give me a second.
Yeah, because we're probably going to diverge. Hi, guys, by the way.
Cool. So this is Witchie. Hello, Witchie.
Hello, I think. How are you?
Yes. Doing very well. I'm also just going to mention that this podcast is pre-recorded, so any and all questions will be fielded in the in the chat boxes themselves. Witchie will not be available for that, but I'll try to field as many as I possibly can.
Yeah, unfortunately, my work hours mean that I can't actually do this at a time when I can help field questions, guys, and I apologize.
Yeah, it happens.
It's absolutely fine. So, Witchie, obviously, recently, Anthrocon has happened. There are many sort of stories talking or going around about it. For instance, the infamous picture on Twitter that has been doing the rounds of a pornographic image that has been placed
on the building, projected onto one of the buildings from a hotel room. Yes.
So one of the things that I would like to ask first is, it wasn't Photoshop. This is an actual image that was done with.
Yeah.
As far as we can tell, it was an actual image. As far as we can tell, because there's a particular people think it might have been Photoshop because of the pattern upon which the picture was projected. There's actually a hotel with Anthrocon, it's the Omni, that faces a building in Pittsburgh with that exact pattern. And so, no, we think that was actually real.
Okay. Was there anybody, I think, apprehended at this point? Do we know who this might have been? Are there any repercussions for people who do that?
Well, I can't speak for anything the board decides, and of course some things are board confidential. Full disclosure for the audience, I am married to a member of the board of directors. I am married to Robert Armstrong, Kiara's girl. He is the dealership director, so I do hear some things, and anything that's board confidential I will not release. That said, the last I heard about this was that they were tracking a person down. They might have had an idea, and there were probably going to be some repercussions if the person could be tracked down. Beyond that, I have no idea. I haven't even thought about it prior to this discussion. So that might be something I ask my husband about when he gets home tonight.
Okay, it would be interesting just to know. Maybe if there is some feedback in respect to that you can possibly tell us, that we could probably say post-recording to anybody who might ask about it. That might be interesting. Because obviously,
for you guys.
Obviously, this kind of leads us directly into one of the first points of things, is that obviously, Anthrocon is a all ages convention, and us having our own convention also very recently, we had ours strictly over 18s, particularly because of various legal issues, the idea of guardians and things like that. One of the things that we can possibly ask is that how does one facilitate that?
It's actually pretty easy. There are up to a certain age point. I think I want to say that age is about 12, and don't quote me on this. I'd actually have to look up the registration requirements. But I think up until about the age of 12 or 13, a child doesn't need a badge. They can be with their parents, and just kind of, they have to be with their parents at all times so they can be there. After that point, they need a kind of signed and notarized permission slip from their parents saying that they can attend the convention on their own, and at that point they get a badge. Usually, up until the age of 16, they still have to have some sort of guardian there, but they can get a badge that way. And then after 16, up until 18, they need to sign a notarized form, but they can attend without parental supervision.
Okay.
And the only other thing that's really facilitated by, and this is actually something I can't speak about because it's dealer room rules, is that there is no adult material that's easily on display at Anthrocon. You can have binders with adult material, but it has to be marked as adult, 18 and up. And naughty bits have to kind of, if it's not net binder, naughty bits have to be covered. If it is net binder, it has to be done in such a way that minors cannot easily stumble upon it, and that's pretty much how they handle it.
And in respect to drinking laws?
We follow the law of, it's 21 and over nationally, and that's what we go by. If someone's caught drinking underage, the Pittsburgh police are called, and it's taken from there.
Okay. And, I mean, obviously, because of the convention in and of itself and the reasons why the convention was made, maybe you could also just go into sort of that thing. It had to do with that idea of the over 18 issue. Many places that were over 18 had, I guess, difficulties controlling their populace.
It wasn't even so much that it was over 18. What happened was when Anthrocon was first created back in the late 90s, there was a fur convention that shall remain unnamed over on the West Coast that treated the whole thing as more of the fetish, more of the thing that, we tried to say that we're not, the whole sex and salaciousness, and like they kind of like paraded that around. And out in public and that type of thing. And so when Anthrocon was created, it was created as an opposite to this, and it was created to be all ages because it's like someplace that was wholesome that didn't have to kind of deal with all of that, and it kind of grew from there.
Okay. And I mean, obviously we had our fair share of complaints in respect to the age restriction and things like that. And so on a legal sort of basis, 16 to 18 is fine, yeah?
On a legal basis, I mean, for people who are going to be attending without parental or guardian supervision, then yeah, 16 to 18 is perfectly fine. Be lower than that, younger than that, you really do need to have a guardian.
But what happens? I mean, like the thing is that if obviously the police are involved and things are like filled out and things like that, what stops them from giving bad publicity or doing things that may be illegal at times? I know that our age limits may differ in respect to consent and things like that. Are those just are those just personal things that they have to deal with themselves, or can they actually bring the convention into the call zone? Disrepute, yeah.
When you come to Anthrocon, you signed a standard of conduct, and the standard of conduct, among other things, I mean, you guys can look it up, I guess, but the standard of conduct, among other things, states that you aren't going to do anything illegal, and if you do, we reserve the right to call the cops and to remove you from the convention. And so in that way, if someone is caught doing something along those lines, they're no longer part of the convention, they get the membership revoked, and they get turned over to the local police. So, I mean, people can act stupid and do that if they want, but if they do, they're no longer part of Anthrocon, therefore they're no longer associated with us.
Okay. It's a pretty fair and standard way of looking at it, I guess. Okay. And, I mean, were there any other incidents that happened at Anthrocon? I mean, it must be very, very difficult to handle over, 7,000 people at once.
I mean, it is, and you've got, you've kind of got to take, each department kind of looks after its own and kind of looks after, what they can do. The only other incident, and I don't know if you guys in south-afrifur actually heard about it, because you actually didn't ask me about it before we started recording, and I was expecting you to, was that we had a suitor, and I'm talking about this because he's made it public. We had a suitor who showed up with the Confederate flag emblazoned on the back of his suit.
We spoke about this last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we spoke about the suitor last year, and
he pitched up again?
He came up again, and he showed up at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. And the thing is that in the standards of conduct this year, due to certain right-wing furry, due to the emergence of certain alt-right furry groups that are
Yeah.
also going to remain nameless at this time, unless we want to really go into it. There was a clause added to the standards of conduct that clothing intended to harass or intimidate was not allowed. This
Mhm.
covers a multitude of things. Among them was flying the Confederate battle flag in the form of a fursuit. And so this gentleman showed up at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center with a sheet wrapped around his suit, walked around, and was escorted back to the Westin to change. And in the letter that he was sent, actually, if you don't mind, I kind of want to find this letter because it's a little hilarious.
I think it is actually available on Twitter.
Yeah,
at
It
some
is.
point.
that's the one that
Yes.
was stuck to the fridge or something.
Yes, that's exactly it. And if you don't mind, I'm actually going to go on to Twitter on my phone real quick to find this letter
By all means.
because it's freaking hilarious. But the letter that was sent to him afterwards kind of details exactly kind of where we are. And give me a moment. It's been a while. It's been a little bit since that was posted, and there are a lot of likes my in my thing. Let me just do a search. Let's see here. Confederate fursuit. And that should probably bring it up.
If not, the
Yeah, we'll go
search
to this
engine is woefully unoptimized.
So, let me find this. Let me find this particular. Oh, come on. I know it's here.
Mm.
The problem is that I'm literally looking for in a dog patch press, thing about it, and it's a little difficult to find it.
Oh,
Here
yeah.
it is. All right, I found it.
Mhm.
So the letter reads as such: Dear Mr. Blank, Anthrocon strives to provide a positive social and artistic environment for its attendees. We greatly value the freedom of self-expression and encourage performance and other art forms that are intended to delight and inspire. We do not, however, welcome any such expression whose intention is to cause offense, outrage, or intimidation. These are contrary to the spirit of Anthrocon. Your recent appearance in a fursuit incorporating the design of the Confederate battle flag drew some attention not for its artistry, but for a perceived political message that some attendees felt was intended to threaten or harass them. Again, we value free expression, but because of the potential to cause distress to our attendees, we must insist that this suit or any attire of such nature not be displayed at Anthrocon in the future. Now here's the kicker, guys. We would also like to gently remind you that in your eagerness to bring the suit into our convention space, you forgot to pay for your membership at registration. We do not mind accepting payment after the fact, but please be advised that you will not be permitted to enter Anthrocon convention space in the future until the $60 fee for your 2017 membership, as well as membership fee for the current year, has been paid.
Mm.
So not only did he show up in violation of the standards of conduct in the suit,
He
um,
also didn't pay his entrance
he
fee.
didn't pay his registration fees.
Mm.
That's,
Wow.
yeah, that's kind of like a double dicketry. You can't really excuse that anymore, can you?
Right. I
Mm.
mean, and the thing about it is that why would you come to the convention to wear something that is essentially banned and then not pay to do so? Like, that was the thing, and that was kind of the biggest incident and the biggest kind of ruffle that went through at Anthrocon, the kind of biggest thing that people noticed. Other than that, we didn't really have a whole lot of anything going on at the
Mhm.
convention.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'm sure you guys know how to do it a lot better than we do.
It's
Given
just a
the
matter of
years of
practice, guys.
experience.
It's just a matter of practice.
Mm.
I'm
Okay.
pretty sure something as
So,
big as Anthrocon lures all types.
yeah.
It does.
Okay, well, that's actually pretty interesting, especially with the sort of extra context that we have around that, and that's actually like I really actually quite enjoy that kind of conversation. Firstly, because it allows us to also, I guess, be wary of similar people. I mean, just now somebody decides to what's the word? Wear a fursuit with the old apartheid South African flag on it, for instance. Um, I don't know. It could happen. We do have all types here as well.
I would definitely, at the very least, be prepared for such a thing because eventually you're probably going to run into it,
Mm.
and it would be good to have a kind of preparation for it. We actually had to adopt this clause in our standards of conduct after the aforementioned alt-right, furry group attended a separate convention with the express intent to harass and to kind of do the whole "I'm not touching you" type of thing in regards to being jerks without and pushing the line without actually getting in trouble. And so you're going to find that a lot of conventions kind of beefed up that particular part of their standards of conduct in response to this.
Did we also not include a clause like that? I think we did.
I think we kind of have a clause like that.
Yeah. Oh, well,
We kind of have a semi-legal-esque advisor on this.
Let's not call him semi-legal.
That's fair.
Let's call him what he is.
Okay. What is he then?
Informed. Well informed.
Informed. Well informed on
Well-informed.
legal practice.
Yes.
That is fair.
Okay. So within the furry sort of fandom, I remember the last time we spoke with one another, we were talking about, demographics and, all of that sort of information in respect to it. And I mean, one of the things that I mentioned in the conversation before this is that it seems like you've become more vocal in respect to, things that are happening within, I think, both the furry fandom as well as, I guess, within general life and things like that, especially there in America.
Yes.
Would you be able to expand a little bit on that?
Absolutely. Basically, a lot of what has kind of prompted my becoming more vocal about this has been, and let's be honest, the election of 45, because I'm not going to refer to him by his name. He doesn't deserve to be referred to by his name. The election of President number 45, and the kind of groundswell of just open bigotry and hatred and disregard for other people that kind of came in its wake, and even within the furry fandom. And this type of thing doesn't go away, especially if it's not called out. And so one of the things I've been doing, I've been trying to do, is be vocal about this and kind of make it known that, there are people of color here, and we are going to speak out. We're not going to be quiet about it. And it's kind of my way of fighting back. And it's also kind of my way of just kind of giving support to those who are also speaking out, whether they are allies or whether they are actually marginalized. Within the furry fandom, it's been kind of this huge thing where, there's this kind of pushback against this rising tide. And it's everywhere. It's literally everywhere. And so in every little community, you kind of have this pushback. And in the furry fandom here in America, that's no different. We have this pushback against this kind of, for lack of a better word, nationalist socialism that has been kind of pervasive and, kind of trying to stomp that attitude out and, not normalizing it, not letting it go. And I think for a lot of people, it's the fact that before, when this happened in other countries, people were afraid to speak up and just kind of sat down and kept their heads down. And it's like, no, I'm not going to just keep my head down. This is not okay, and I'm going to speak up.
Okay. Because, obviously, and you speak about nationalist socialism, and yet, if we do have to go into that kind of perspective, there's obviously the opposing argument that says that the real nationalist socialist would be somebody like Bernie Sanders, who is very liberal, for instance, in comparison. And yet, like it's I mean, we talk about the alt-right and everything like that. And the alt-right obviously has a very, very deep-seated influence on the furry fandom as well, because now there's this platform that people can sort of sit down and say, yeah, no, but you can't quash my views on these things anymore, kind of thing. And
Right.
where did that actually kind of start from? Where was it popularized, especially within the furry fandom, for instance?
um, I want to say, I mean, here's the problem of now versus when this happened in the past. When this happened in the past, there was no internet. There was no kind of
There was no finding your echo chamber.
Exactly, and that's exactly what it is. You get people who kind of find their echo chambers and kind of reinforce their ideas, and I hate to say it's term radicalize, but they kind of radicalize themselves each other. And the internet, more than anything, one of the great things and terrible things about the internet is that it allows ideas to spread further and faster than ever before in human history. And unfortunately, that can go with bad ideas as well as good. And we kind of have to. That's been happening in all sorts of communities in the furry fandom. I want to say that really started becoming a huge thing over in the Colorado and the Denver area, and it's been kind of spreading out from there.
Okay, and I mean, it's difficult to handle, isn't it? I mean, especially again, I mean, you have people wearing Confederate flag fursuits who, yes, granted, yes, it was made. It's a good looking fursuit.
It's actually well made.
It's well made.
It's a terrible thing to have.
It's very bad.
Appreciate the craftsmanship, but like the message is just wrong.
Yeah, I mean the craftsmanship on, I'm not even gonna lie, the craftsmanship on that suit is exquisite. Like it's absolutely amazing. I just wish it was put to a better purpose.
Yeah.
The issue or the question, of course, is obviously, I mean, the person was paid to make it, or if there was somebody who was actually connected to that style of fursuit or anything along the lines of that. If it was self-made, then that would obviously be fine. But the thing is that, I mean, if it could probably be worse rather than better if it came to, like that it was made by, say, a popular fursuit maker, for instance. And it just...
I mean, there's a huge kind of rebranding of the Confederate battle flag as being about quote-unquote states' rights and state heritage. And that's kind of where a lot of people go. And the thing about it is, and make no mistake, this rebranding happened in like the 60s and 70s in direct response to Jim Crow going away. And when the Confederate battle flag was created, it was created to, and you can look this up, the person who made it created it to be the quote-unquote white man's flag. And it is absolutely racist, but it's been rebranded as being, well, it's a states' rights and Southern heritage thing. No, it's really not. But there are a lot of people who believe that. And so you can get a lot of people, and between that and the concept of the First Amendment freedom of speech that, is very pervasive here, which, again, I believe in the First Amendment, but, it doesn't mean that I have to stand here and take, crap that you say. It becomes very easy to find someone who will, make a fursuit like that and who will engage in that, so.
I mean, yeah,
Okay.
the double-edged sword with free speech is you can say what you want, but you're not free of the repercussions of whatever you say.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
I mean, and it's honestly, and it's weird that I tell my students this every now and again, but I've always said this one thing, which kind of annoys them a little bit, because we're talking about, a lot of the time we talk about consumerism. We talk about the death of the American dream, which is where we talk about like the book. What was it called again? I'm forgotten, and I've taught it today. But man,
You need more coffee. I think you need more coffee.
I just finished that cup. Just finished it. I should be fine. But in any case, so we're talking about this idea of the American dream, and people are like, well, and I talk about this idealism of how we can be whatever we want to be, but just because you're different at times doesn't mean that you're useful.
Right.
Is something that I tell people, and I mean it's a difficult concept, particularly because there's this entirety of sort of like, and it's probably one of the reasons why the alt-right has so many followers, is because they feel that the world has become far more PC, while as the people on the other side would think, no, we're being
Fair.
fair and vocal about who we are. So on the one hand, you're saying, we're being PC, but on the other hand, it's technically we're being fair to one another, and we're saying, I respect who you are. But then again, in that same sense, they would probably argue something along the lines of, I don't have to recognize your personal pronouns, but that kind of thing, or something along the lines of that. And you could probably argue with, or they could argue with, don't force your personal pronouns onto me. If you're being fair about saying that, if somebody just, say, calls me a she or a he because I look like a man, then it's just to correct them rather than to immediately go into what would possibly be an alt-right argument where it's sort of, oh, no, but now you're doing this and this and this. And that's a fine line.
It is a fine line. But what you kind of have to, and I recognize the argument therein, but what you kind of have to realize is that for these people, the people who overwhelmingly are upset about this in one way or another have some sort of privilege. They're either cisgender males or white males or straight males, or the holy grail of privilege, the white cisgender straight male. And they're used to the world being a certain way. And the thing is that they've always been told that the world is fair. This is how the world is. And since the world has never slapped them upside the face with evidence that this isn't a fair thing, they believe it. They believe that the playing field is completely level. So when you've always been given something and you're taking it for granted that this is a fair thing, when the playing field actually is tilted to be level, it feels like you're losing something, and people lash out against that. And that's the thing. They want to argue, like, well, you're coming up against my rights. And it's like, people aren't losing rights. This isn't a zero-sum game.
Yeah.
What's happening is other people are gaining rights that they already had and are trying to gain the respect and the type of general, like, respect as a person that they've always had. But since they've always had it, they don't understand why they have to change what they're doing, and they lash out.
Yeah. So the only right that's really being lost is the right to constantly, like, hash on people.
Pretty much. The right to say whatever you want to say without repercussion.
Yeah.
Which is a right that has been enjoyed by those in power for eons. Absolutely eons. And that is starting to go away. And people don't like having to have repercussions for saying whatever they want when they've always enjoyed that right.
Yeah.
Heaven forbid you don't get called out for being a dick.
Oh my gosh, you told me I was a dick. You told me, and this can lead into something else you wanted to ask me, Ivik, but you told me that there is a price to pay for being an asshole. My rights are being violated.
Yeah. I don't know, like, I mean, at the end of the day, rather, it's that kind of argumentation that kind of just grabs me in all the wrong kinds of ways, in that you kind of sit there going, like, I understand. I used to technically be cisgender. I used to be part of this extremely, privileged group. And the thing is that, and it's interesting that I'm talking to a politics lecturer who is very, very involved in our current governing body, or at least our current political sort of power that is at present in power. And the thing is that, like, speaking to him, for instance, where he talks about the political party from an outsider's perspective and says, these things aren't going the way that we want it to. Our party isn't going in the way that we want it to go. And for that, I cannot agree with them. And he's able to say that. But the thing is that the party is constantly attempting to squash views like that, that it's against party policy to say that. And like one of the things that he's actually also, we spoke about things like feminism. We spoke about things like the idea of the the leading into patriarchy, for instance. And he's actually said this in such a wonderfully eloquent way. He said that it is not up to the men to fight for women and feminism in that same sense. It is not for white people to fight for, or against racism. It's for the people to take that freedom, the people who are under that sort of that position, to take those rights and make it their own. And only then would there be equality, because there's nothing worse than having something given to you when you have no actual agency over it.
Exactly. And I can definitely see where he's coming from. I gave him a little applause because he's absolutely right. I didn't want to interrupt you, but I was just sitting here kind of lightly clapping my hands together. But I mean, the problem with that is, I mean, like, no struggle is easy, but going up against an establishment that is unused to being challenged is always going to be tough, and you're always going to run into those who would rather things stay, basically the why can't you stay in your place mentality.
And I mean, it's honestly, if we have to move it into that, people who are furries, for instance, it's not that it's sometimes, it could be a legitimate sort of fear or legitimate sort of thing that we are constantly being oppressed by people around us. But the older, and that's one of the most interesting things that I've noticed, the older the person that I'm speaking to about it, people around about my age now, currently, 29, 30, even this politics lecturer, I've told them, I'm part of this group of people. We're doing these kinds of things. We set up a convention. If you really want to read this, or if you want to go to our, furry.fm, I tell my students this as well. I'm relatively open about it, but from the perspective of what I'm doing. I don't necessarily tell them what other people are doing. If they want to look for that, they're more than welcome to, and if they want to ask me questions, I'll be open to them. But that entire idea of being frightened of things like that, and we're beginning to open up a little bit, but it's because we took agency as a group of people to show the best side that we have.
Exactly.
And sort of go, we exist like this. Yes, no, this is absolutely true. Reason being, we're human. You can't.
And I think that kind of goes back to what you were asking me earlier about issues with 18 over versus all ages. Is that I think part of the reason why we don't have the issues with all ages that we do is because we, as the furry fandom, have that agency now. We can say, you don't get to define who we are, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah. What? Oh. Sorry. Yes? No, that's not...
That was like contemplative silence.
Yeah, sorry. I think it might have been a bit of a technical hiccup. Can't wait until we get fired.
It wasn't it wasn't a technical hiccup as much as it was me going, huh. I have nothing more to add to this.
Fair point, yeah.
Is it contemplative silence for a moment?
Yeah.
People kind of digest that.
But one has to, the thing is that it has to kind of be established beforehand. It's that entire idea of establishing it beforehand. And it's kind of one of the things that I think a lot of people who have complained about our age limit firstly overlooked is that our entire initiative with this was to at least show that we can get a group of people together and not have them murder one another. The second step or the third step or the fourth step, depending on how things are going, depending on how big this becomes, is the basis on which we would make decisions like, lowering our age limits, for instance, allowing for parents to know about this group of people and or to have to accompany their children to things like this, because it's something that we're terrifyingly afraid of. That, I mean, recently there was an article written in one of our newspapers that some people have actually seen, and something that I can probably talk about since it is in the public space, is that there were two people in two different provinces speaking to one another over text medium. One of them was underage, and the other one was of age. Not necessarily sure how old the older person was, but the other person was 14. And the mother had taken the boy's phone and had scrolled through the messages and then spoke to the newspaper and said, no, this person has actually been grooming my child. And that's a word that I want to look into, because, like, I know where I was when I was 14. I know what I was thinking about when I was 14. All the way up to 16, all the way up to 18. And I know how these things kind of sort of led from one to the other. But being able to do that within your own age group is extremely important. I mean, I know a girl who was 15 and she was in a relationship that she'd gone into with a person who was 24. And it's such a difficult thing to go into. And honestly, it's actually not difficult at all. The law is the law and you should abide by it. But the word grooming sometimes, I don't know, it catches me, because I'm sitting here going like, it does take two to tango, but at what point does the other person learn to dance?
I feel like the issue there is a power imbalance. And this is the type of situation where the older person is kind of presenting themselves as this confidant, this person who, I understand you, I get you, I'm never going to betray you, I want to be with you, I understand, and kind of portraying themselves as this person in a confidential in a position of confidence. But they also have the advantage of age. They have the advantage of some more maturity, and they have the advantage of knowing how to manipulate and not being as naive as that younger person. And I think all that creates that kind of power imbalance, and that's where the sense of grooming someone can come from.
Okay, it's a very fair look at it. I mean, it perturbs me at times that, like, the parents, I guess maybe that's kind of the weird fine line that I'm constantly trying to figure out how to cross without necessarily getting fired in like in the school that I'm busy with. Because, I mean, when it comes to the idea of, power relations, when it comes to the idea of talking about different cultures, one is never sure when you're overstepping a boundary. And, I mean, it happened to one of our teachers who was not one of our teachers in our institute, but one of our teachers recently was fired for making terrifyingly racist remarks. It went as far as the government literally said, there may have been an independent body that said that he should, not be in a senior position anymore, but he can still be at the school and he can have remedial action taken onto him. The man was told to leave by the government. He was no longer allowed to teach there. Wow. I'm not sure if you heard about it, Scratch.
I do not think I did. I don't read the paper that much.
Yeah, it was on the radio, the one radio that I listened to, Radio 702, in the mornings and the afternoons. They've been talking about it for the past 2 weeks now. So, like, and there's another sort of perspective. You kind of sit there going like, remedial action may possibly have been a better way of doing it, but then you also have to set a standard. But how many teachers will now be fired for being racist? How many people will... We're already short on teachers. Would a remedial action not be better than to summarily fire them, especially if they're, good teachers, for instance, or good on certain levels, maybe? Those would be places that you would have to look at.
But you also have to look at whether or not they would end up doing more harm than good, even in a remedial situation.
Yeah, Fair enough. I mean, like, that teacher's never going to be hired again. His name is all over the papers. His name is everywhere. No school with any sense would ever hire him.
Or scruples.
And it places them into a position. Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't even matter if they had no scruples. It's just not good business.
Urania still exists.
That place should be burnt to the ground. I'm sorry. Maybe that's a bit rough. But for context, by the way, we have a little town, area, municipality, what?
Settlement.
Settlement
Whatever you want to call it.
of white Afrikaans people. They don't allow anybody else. No person of color may be in there. But they've created this settlement. Weirdly enough, I think their symbol is the Kuksisted. It's a little pastry that is in a little, what do you call it? A spiral, a plait. They're terrifyingly racist. They go against the grain of everything that South Africa stands for, and yet they're allowed to exist.
Hell, they technically have their own currency now. They're working on moving towards a digital currency.
You mean cryptocurrency?
No, like just I don't know if it's going to be specifically a cryptocurrency, but they're making their own currency essentially.
What are they going to call it? Dioranius?
I think it's Aura.
I'd love it if they called it Diuranus, because that would definitely because that refers to the it's actually an anglicized name for if you know ANUS.
Yeah.
Which means that they're the butt end of South Africa.
Yeah.
Honestly.
The Aura is the local currency of Orania, an Afrikaner enclave in South Africa. Enclave is the right word.
An enclave.
Yeah.
You know what happened to the last enclave that was in any way publicized?
No.
They all committed suicide.
Are we talking about Jamestown?
And it happened. I think it's Jamestown.
Jamestown, yes. Well, no, there's another enclave that's publicized. They're just go around protesting everybody.
All right.
Oh, right, of course, there. But they have their own little house. It's not really an enclave, and they get.
No, they have their own. They have their own little community. It's an enclave
of 71 people. No, 70 because the pastor died. If I remember correctly, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Several families is what it is.
Several families of assholes.
You want to talk about grooming? That's grooming.
It is. It absolutely is.
Absolute grooming. From the point that they can speak, they're being told, this is bad because of this.
Well, I mean, here's the thing, and something that you probably don't know about me. I grew up a Jehovah's Witness.
Yeah.
And it's not what I see happening over in Westboro is a more extreme version of how kids who are raised Jehovah's Witnesses are raised. So, I'm definitely very familiar with those tactics.
That's rough. Whoa.
Yeah. See, I'm not a terribly religious.
That actually upsets me.
What, that Jehovah's Witnesses are like trained as little soldiers kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're taught about theocratic warfare from a very young age.
So, but at what point do, say, furries groom children?
At the point where I'm going to try and be careful about this.
Yeah.
I would say it's at the point where the furry is themselves of age and they're targeting someone who is outside of that 2 to 3 year age range. In other words, not their emotional and intellectual peer, but someone who is below that, way below that. As an example, my husband is currently in his 40s. I am in my 30s. We are at a point where intellectually and emotionally we are equal, and so the age gap does not necessarily make a difference for us. Mm-hmm. But if he were in his 30s and I was in my early 20s, that might be different because there's a certain amount of emotional maturity that you don't get behind that until you get to your mid-20s. And at that point, it becomes a power imbalance again, and you start getting into grooming situations.
Yeah. I'm about like 2 seconds away from saying preach it, but
Well,
because I mean,
yeah.
once again, I know where I was when I was 21. Scratch, actually, you know exactly where I was when I was 21. There was a
Yeah.
point that I was trying to get in. I was trying to get into a relationship with a person that was 4 years older than I was, and I was 3 months in. I was like, let's get married, and I'm kind of sitting there going like, and she was
I'm gonna let you pick the words.
unstable, unstable at best.
Yeah.
But I had this
And
idea that I could fix her
yeah, batshit at worst.
somehow. That should have worst. I lost many, many glasses and many, many fights where I was being accused of cheating on her when she was the one who was cheating on me, for instance. Like at the
Right.
age of 20, at the age of like, what, 20, how old was I?
Yeah, like 21ish.
Yeah, no, it must have been, yeah,
No,
around about 21, 20, no,
no.
23.
Yeah, around about there, actually.
But I was, and Scratch can actually like attest to this. I was in this mood for the better part of a year where I'd moved away from my hometown and I was like, everything needs to fall into place now.
Yeah, you were like
Mhm.
Like I need, yeah.
you went away from university with like a fucking checklist. You were just trying to gun that
Yep.
checklist as soon as possible.
Oh, I was the exact same way in my early 20s. I left my parents' house, moved in with my now ex-husband, and by God, I was, even if he was toxic, even if he made me feel like shit, even if he was the worst thing that ever happened to me, I was going to make this work because this was the checklist I had to check off.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Huh.
It's not an unusual thing when we're told that there's really only one right way to grow up and be successful, and this is what you're going to do without really having a chance to kind of make our own
Decision.
mistakes and
And
decisions.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You run into that really, really quickly, and a lot of people do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
some
I
of
feel
us
like
are.
I'm just like dispensing the wisdom. Wow.
Hey?
Say again?
I feel like I'm just sort of dispensing like all this like I have grown up wisdom now.
Yeah.
Some of us need it.
It's part and parcel,
Yeah.
I think.
I mean,
And it's also, yeah, go.
what was that quote from that Baz Luhrmann song? Um, like dispensing wisdom is just sort of like recycling experiences out of the trash, dusting it off, and passing it on to someone else.
Yeah.
Yep,
Mm.
pretty much.
I still love
I
that
mean,
song.
and it's maybe we can take this from that kind of perspective. I mean, like we're both Scratch and I are 1 year away from entering the what would you call it? The dirty 30s,
Eh.
if you, if you had to.
See, I
I mean,
resembled that remark.
I'm. um, and the thing is that I mean, it's kind of I don't know. Like there comes a point where, as a person who's also part of the furry community, that one begins to sort of I don't know. Like I remember I was around about 26 or 27 that I started going hashtag young furs. And no offense to them, but the thing is that like I immediately there were points that I'd get annoyed with the way that people were thinking or the kinds of relationships that people would go into, and they'd come to me for advice, and I'd be sitting here going like, yes, I have been in several relationships like this. You could try to do this and this and this, and then watch them do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Opposite.
It's like I don't know what the hell a throuple is. I can't help you.
I
Like,
also
the
don't know
whole
what a
thing
throuple
about
is.
it
What's a throuple?
I don't know. We're all old, guys. We're all old.
No, it's sort of exactly what it sounds like. It's a couple, but there's three of them.
Oh, so okay.
Yeah. It's like
So
Huh.
a polyamorous relationship.
yeah, like I understand what it is, but I cannot help you. I've never been there. Like I'm just
Nope,
sort of
never been there,
settling
but
I'm just settling into one like relationship with one person. I can't help you with two.
I guess
that's
ask them.
a whole level of
Ask.
complexity. I know
Yeah.
people who are in who are in polyamorous relationships, and I'm just like, go talk to them. They've got it figured out. I'm lucky I still have my one. Okay.
Yeah, same.
I haven't even considered a second yet.
Yeah, it's like that's just greedy.
It's like kids. It's like, what do you mean you want to have another kid? It's like, what do you mean you want to have another partner? Like, this is hard enough.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, for any other sort of sense, the only sort of point of reference that I have at this point is Mormons
Or our president.
or our president. But then again, you'd have to then also encompass the entire, like, cultural background that goes with having those kinds of polyamorous. How many wives does he have? 16?
Five.
Five.
Yes.
How many kids does he have?
Oh, far too fucking many.
Like 27.
Oh, too many to live on our taxpayer
Like,
dime.
yeah. Yeah. All of them vying for political office.
Not the way things are going right now.
Yeah. One of his ex-wives is actually
Honestly,
running for president.
I would still trade that for Trump.
No.
I don't think you understand.
I
He's
hear it.
crazy.
I hear it's quite the shit salad.
Yeah. I was talking about it today, and somebody was like, "Why do you give him Twitter?" And I'm kind of sitting there going, like, "Treat him like a child. Take away his toys. Make him mope about it."
Yeah,
But he can't talk to the entire world.
Yeah, but a child doesn't have access to the football.
They take away his phone and he just gets it back. It's like you can tell when his phone's been taken away because he'll have a few days of like sane, rational tweets, no tirades, and then something will happen and he'll get his phone back and it'll just be nuts again. And I'm just like, why did we elect a 4-year-old in a 70-year-old's body? Why did this happen?
Why did we elect somebody who decides to tweet when he's falling asleep?
I'm not even gonna lie. My husband and I spent like 2 hours laughing over all of the different coffee memes. And just wondering how pissed off he was going to be in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, in all honesty, I didn't even think it's worth laughing. It's just like the fact that generals are a little bit on edge when he doesn't finish a tweet storm is a little bit concerning.
It's absolutely concerning, but when you're living in this situation, you either laugh or you cry, and honestly, laughing is a lot more fun.
Yeah.
I spent election night sobbing.
Yeah.
When he was elected, the most I can do now is be angry as hell, fight back, and then laugh when he does something stupid.
Which is quite.
I mean, I know, for instance, Tempo-kun, we've had him on a couple of times as well. He very often talks about his activism within the state of North Dakota, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
He goes to practically any and all Congress meetings or anything like that where there's open mics and things like that. And he stands there every single time with a sign saying, "You represent us. You don't represent your president."
Right. And here's my actual issue. And it's part of the reason why I'm as vocal on Twitter and online as I am is because point blank, I'm a target. If I go out there and if I put myself out there physically and bodily, the fact that I am a black woman will make me a target. And for me, and I'm not saying this is for anyone else, and this may be a bit cowardly of me, but for me, my focus is on getting through these next 4 years alive with my family. You know, with me, my husband, and the kids that we have, like, I want to get through these alive. And while I will make my voice heard, I will encourage people who can go to demonstrations. I will encourage people and support people who want to resist in any way that they can. I personally do not feel safe doing so because there have been too many instances where they see black person and immediately target them, and too many of those people have ended up dead.
Completely understandable. Like, yeah, you can't protest when you're dead. no matter how
Exactly.
hard you
Like
try.
I can speak to high heaven, and call my representatives, fax them, and I do. My representatives hear from me quite a bit, but I will not go out and demonstrate because I do not want to be one of those people who ends up dead, who ends up another
Yeah.
statistic.
And I mean, and that was also one of the issues that we spoke about the last time that we had you on, is that entire idea of, like, obviously we spoke about the 3 strikes or the 2 strikes, for instance, in that you're both a woman as well as part of a oppressed group of people. And in doing that, those 2 strikes count so heavily against you that there's any given point that somebody's just going to go and snap. I mean, what stops somebody, for instance, who becomes so militant about something, and that's something that's happened so often, and it hasn't been terrorist attacks, or like terrorist attacks in the way that America sees terrorist attacks, which is any and all Muslim person that walks in with a gun. It's the entire idea that the vast majority of, like, large-scale killings have been done by people who are conservative, right-wing, and completely and utterly batshit insane. But this is caused by the narrative around it. And that's possibly one of the things that we can actually, again, drag into the furry conversation, in that with the sort of rise of the alt-right in furry conversation and things like that, and I intend to actually have somebody who seems to be relatively alt-right in their sort of perspectives on the show at some point, because of the content that they have in their comic books. I mean, in their comics. And in the way that it sort of like lampoons the entire idea of all that kind of stuff. And I just want to see whether he's just lampooning for lampooning's sake, or whether he actively believes these things. Because I've been checking his Twitter as well, and it's difficult, but I love having conversations with people like that. It's not to call them out for their ideas, but it's more to hear their sort of perspective. Maybe I'm wrong, and I'd like to figure out why, for instance.
Here's a hint, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
Not in this instance.
Okay.
That's all I'm saying. That's as far as as I'm going. I don't know. I've kind of lost my train of thought in this because it's just I go through it so often and it's exhausting to go through it time and time again. And of course, if I ever do have a kid, it's going to be my life again. So, the circle of life.
No. Crap. My other lighter broke now.
You shouldn't smoke.
No, this is not some divine power that is telling me that I shouldn't be able to do this.
No, this is me telling you that you shouldn't do this. You shouldn't smoke.
No, my mom.
Come on.
I am the fandom mom. I'm not the fandom mom. I don't want to be the fandom mom. That is a responsibility I do not want.
To burden. Like, that is a burden that I think no one wants to shoulder.
Like, no one wants to be the fandom mom.
Yeah, like, because we already sort of have a fandom dad, and he has live streams where he drinks his sorrows away, so...
Yeah, I worry about him.
I'm pretty sure everybody does. Everyone who gives half a shit about any kind of human.
I'm taking leaflets out of his book in respect to that. My entire con discussion was done drinking.
No, don't. And here's why. And we're going to actually get on this topic of this particular person. Okay. Have you been following anything Two has been doing as of late?
No.
Me neither.
Okay. The thing I'm going to mention, and we can go into the whole pre-Anthrocon blow-up after this if you want, and I'm sure you're going to want to. He is actually trying to quit drinking. Period.
Two or Uncle Kage?
Two. No, two
Okay.
is trying to quit drinking completely. And as a former friend of his, there was a time when we were very close friends. We would call each other often. We'd hang out. Um, there was just we were really good friends. And I was just he's not wrong about this, that there is a culture of alcohol within the furry fandom that he partially helped kind of perpetuate.
Hmm.
And that can be a really slippery slope. And so my advice to you as someone who helps do conventions is try not to fall back on alcohol too much.
Oh no, we have we have our own cultures.
Like, but
I know
even
that.
like even with like I mean, like, even with like doing, like, I'm just going to drink while doing this discussion. Yeah, that can get away from you.
Hmm.
Witchy the fandom mom is talking again. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna
Honestly,
stop.
I mean, like, again, as Scratch actually says, our culture, the South African white culture,
Yeah.
very much of the time, um, has a sort of a backgrounding of, having a couple of drinks during discussions and things like that. It's not to loosen the tongue at any given point. It's a thing we do.
Yeah.
Ah,
So it's not like I wasn't necessarily doing it because I was nervous in any kind of perspective, cough cough. But I mean I was nervous. It's just that the drinking wasn't, part and parcel of it. It was more just it's for instance, right now I don't have a cup of coffee in front of me, which means that I don't have anything to it's uh, an ex of mine used to call this a mind off. So it was nothing that I would be able to keep my hands busy with. I wouldn't be able to hold the cup and then every now and again lift it, kind of thing.
right.
Um, Now I'm also, without another one of my vices. So at this point, you'll find that I'm fidgeting with everything that I can find on my desk. I have literally started, I'm fidgeting with a Zippo. I have put it away. I've put it down because it's loud. Um, and one of the things that I do while teaching as well, recently I got a hold of two rubber bands,
Oh boy.
and I'm constantly playing with these rubber bands in my hand. It's a tactile thing for me. Do
Yeah.
not give me a fidget spinner.
Yeah. Okay. I won't.
Putting them up.
I have a
Uh,
fidget cube that I
I
use for that purpose.
I am waiting for mine in the mail for months. Literally months. I ordered them
Oh, I'm
in
sorry.
I ordered them in January. They started shipping in April.
yeah,
It is now August.
and
Yeah,
this is the
that.
yeah.
Yeah.
This is the reason why I told like Bravura that the mail that he'll be able to send to us. He's like, no, it'll be there in like a couple of weeks. I'm
No,
sitting
it
here going
won't.
like, no. Well, I'm never going to see it.
Yeah. No. We'll get it eventually, but like, I mean, you know how long like RK and Tempo stuff took to pitch up.
Yeah, and that's something that we probably need to plan ahead of time for when it comes to merchandising and things like that. And it's one of the, should have mentioned it at the freaking, okay, post-con thing that we possibly look at using blah, blah,
Couriers.
blah, blah, blah. But no, well, that too, but I mean, that costs like an arm and a leg and like, I don't know, three fingers off of the other arm that's still attached and possibly your left
Okay,
kidney.
this metaphor's been pulled like completely. Like, I appreciate your zealousy, but let's stop there.
I had to go for kidney. There were other things that I could have gone to, and I'm just like,
No more
ah,
appendages.
I'm going to apologize for this, folks. That we got way off topic. I think we're all just having fun at this point.
yeah,
No, that's usually how this
um,
goes, to be honest.
yeah, because and but out of all of the things that I think we noticed from our convention as well, and I mean, yes, ours was a far bit smaller, and yes, we kind of didn't. A lot of people were like, "Do it like Anthrocon, do it like Anthrocon," and we were like, "We don't have enough people."
Yeah, we don't have enough people. We don't have the
Why do
budget.
it? hold on. Here's the thing. Why do it like Anthrocon? Do it like you guys. Every
Yeah.
convention is not meant to be Anthrocon. Anthrocon is Anthrocon. No other convention has to be Anthrocon but Anthrocon.
Well,
Yeah.
Like Midwest Fur Fest, it's
yeah.
its own convention. It is Midwest Fur Fest. Biggest Little Fur Con is its own convention. Euroferns is its own convention. Confuzzled, they're all their own thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the thing is, people want like the actual con experience because that's something that most of us will never experience in our lives because we can't afford to fuck off to the
To
U.S. or
travel.
whatever. Yeah,
Or Europe, or
Pittsburgh,
Australia, or
Pittsburgh is fun.
yeah, cool. I wish I could be
we
there. The
would
furthest I've
love to
been out of the
come.
country is Namibia. It doesn't count. Our
Yeah.
currencies are still linked.
Yeah. But yeah, no, that is obviously one of the issues, is that it's just going to cost way too much for any of us to ever make it that side. And there are people who've gone. Like, there were 2 South Africans that went to Anthrocon this year, for
Yeah, Taka and
instance,
Rockets.
who were also at our convention. And like the thing is that one of the most interesting conversations that we had so far in respect to the community and us as the board at large was, who says that your thing is a convention?
Yeah.
And we were kind of, yeah,
Can you believe that?
It's
More
a
than
gathering of like-minded.
sorry to interrupt you. Like more than like a fair share of people were bitching about the fact that we were using the word convention.
Okay,
yeah,
question. How many people did you guys have at south-afrifur?
29?
28.
28, yeah, 28.
Was it a gathering of like-minded people
Yes.
with panels?
Yes.
Yes.
It was a convention.
We even had.
It may have
we
been
even
a
had,
very
yeah.
small convention, but it was a convention.
Yeah. I mean, and the wonderful thing is that obviously during one of our, I think it was during my final speech on the final night, I mentioned, I'm not sure if I mentioned it then or if I mentioned it somewhere else, but we always refer to Anthrocon as, like, if you guys want this like Anthrocon, Anthrocon started in someone's garage, in essence, or someone's home, or something like that.
Yep.
And that was sort of the entire sort of thing. It's just like, you want this to be like Anthrocon? You make it like Anthrocon. You get
Yep.
the people there. We're only facilitating the area that you're going to be in. Everything else is whoever comes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all the convention ever is. The convention's about, the people, the attendees. And that's something, it's not about the people putting it on. It's not about our egos or our ones or anything. All Anthrocon has ever done, and any convention I've ever been a part of has ever done, is try to abide by the will of the attendees and try to abide by the will of the people who are coming to this thing. Because ultimately, we're putting this on for them.
Mm-hmm.
We're not putting this on for ourselves. We're putting this on for the people who want to come to the convention. And they're the ones that matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, what would the point be of like the 6 admins that were there, or the 6 like convention organizers, whatever, being there in this enormous like fuck off dining hall by ourselves talking into the breeze? But that's not. No one's doing it because we want to like stroke our own egos or something. Or
I mean, if it was about stroking my own ego, I'd create a YouTube channel that has nothing but me eating chilies all fucking day.
yeah, which
Or
I still
something
don't
like
know why
that,
no
or
one does that to themselves.
doing the next best thing, or doing all of these wonderful things where it doesn't require a large amount of effort from my side, where it doesn't require me to sit down and like have like and this is the one thing that I actually mentioned is that up until the day we left, I was still not sure if we were having a success or not. It doesn't matter how many people came up to me and said, "Yo, you guys did good," and I'm sitting there going like,
Okay.
I'm waiting for someone to die.
Yeah.
And literally, that was it. It was unfortunately that kind of perspective for me. And like, you don't willingly put yourself through the kind of stress that I think all of us went through on like a day-by-day basis, especially in the last like 2 months leading up to the convention, just because you want to be famous.
Yeah.
No, you
Nobody would put
definitely do
themselves
not.
through that nonsense just for the lulz.
Yeah, you don't consider, and again, like you actually mentioned, which is that like you have to be ready to sometimes fire your friends. And you
Yeah.
mentioned this time as well, I think.
Yes, you do sometimes have to be ready to fire your friends. It's part of what it is to be, staff at a convention, especially if you're on the board or if you're running a convention or if you're in charge of any type of department.
Mhm.
Um, I staff the dealer's room. The dealer's room is run by my husband. At any point, if I prove to be, not no longer good for the department or for the convention as a whole, and we discussed this, he has no problem coming to me and saying, "Dear, you're no longer staff at Anthrocon. I'm sorry, but
Mm.
I take you off of staff. It doesn't mean I'm going to stop loving him. It doesn't mean we're going to stop being best friends. It's just not everyone is a good fit for everything."
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
That's
Completely
absolutely
understand.
true.
Yeah.
Um, Sheesh, I wanted to add something to that as well. It's exactly, yes, here it is. S- Scratch can attest to this.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time something went wrong, like, and I mean, I'm talking about like terrifyingly wrong. Like, our previous venue like canceled on us. The previous year, when we realized that the amount of time that we had between preparation and the convention time that we set out, so the 2016 one that we were attempting to do, every single time something went wrong and we had a meeting after that, or in some sort of post-mortem way. In fact, this time around as well, because of we had a post-mortem meeting. I asked everybody on the board, I said, do you still want me in this position? Do you still
Hmm.
think that I am capable of doing what I'm supposed to be doing? And having to ask that when it's, in essence, I mean, in 2015, the initiative was in essence mine, but when the initiative is no longer the thing that is necessary on the board, am I still useful? And I had to ask that of myself on 3 occasions. I went through some terrifyingly bad patches of like, not even, it was pre-con depression. uh, where I would sit there and go like, am I even useful here? Am I even doing the things that I'm meant to be doing? And I dropped the ball on like a whole bunch of occasions. I'm the first person to admit this. But to be able to do that, to be able to be in the position where you're going, am I still relevant here? And if I'm not, I need to leave. And that's something that, like, and I mean, again, like, I thank the group that we have at this point, like, to no end for both ensuring that I managed to stay motivated throughout all of this and to, not feel as though I was going it alone in that same sense.
Nah, dude. Like,
And that's, yeah,
you know how much effort like all of us put into this thing. It was by
yeah,
no stretch you going it alone at that point. Like,
yeah.
I'd call you like a glory hog and an asshole if you thought that.
Don't worry, I'd call myself a glory hole and an asshole, and I would probably off myself because that is definitely not what I think that I don't want to be known like that. That's not the way that's not the person. I guess personality would be the term. No, that's not the thing that I want to put forward. Like at the end of the day, if I wasn't doing what I was supposed to be doing, you should be able to fire me. You should be able to throw me away, and I should be okay with that.
Yeah, understandably so. But yeah, currently you still serve a
Mm.
purpose, so get back to work.
Yeah, I don't know. Three times I spoke to them, and 3 times they all said, "No, we're still fine with you being here." And I'm like, "God damn it, why?
Hey, if you
Just
wanna,
kick me off, please."
And now you know how Uncle Kage feels.
Hmm. I remember he tweeted about that once. I remember someone forwarded me a tweet like that once.
Yeah, the board's not going to let him go. I've asked, and I've been told no peace days.
Oh.
Yeah, you're kind of screwed.
But yeah, I think. Yeah, I'm kind of screwed. God damn it. Oh well. I guess this is my life now.
Welcome
But
to
yeah.
running a convention.
Yeah. Well, until we get our second year up and running, I'm going to not call this a one and done thing. Until we get the third one running, I'm not going to call it a proper annual thing. Until we got the fourth one running, I'm possibly going to call it an annual thing. And at least by that point, maybe we'll know as much as we should know to be able to do it properly.
Yeah, as if proper.
And
Yeah.
then,
I mean,
no.
can't stop entropy. Shit's gonna happen regardless.
And
Yep.
then by year 20, I'm going to be sitting there going like, and back in my day, because by that point I'll be 50. No, 49. 20 years from now I'll be 49. Yes?
Yes.
Yes,
I'm
49.
guessing.
And then we'll have this conversation again, except by that point I don't know. Things would have happened. I won't be on this mortal plane anymore. If I continue to drink and
That's what
smoke,
it
I
takes.
probably won't be.
If that what it takes to achieve immortality, then man, we're never going to get rid of Kage.
Yeah, he's just gonna
Jeez.
be like like the Futurama head in a jar, but instead of like formaldehyde, it's just gonna be wine.
Yep.
Wine preservation. Ugh.
Hey, if it works,
Somehow I
it
wouldn't
works.
be surprised.
Hey, look, I mean, honestly, not a very bad way to go.
Turns from a cockroach into a pickle.
So I have to. Jeez. So I have to ask, do you guys have any other questions about anything you want to ask me? I know there are a couple things we didn't
No.
touch on. No? All right, bye.
Okay.
If you need to be somewhere, just say so.
No. I don't need. I am joking. Goodness.
Okay. Just check.
I mean, is there anything that you'd like to touch on? In respect to maybe more of your work that you're attempting to do now. I mean, I know that you're working on a book.
Yeah, anything you want to plug? Yeah, that was what I was about to ask.
Yeah.
I don't know if I necessarily want to plug this book just yet because it is still in the editing stages. But I am in the process of writing one of the things I've gotten really kind of involved in reading lately has been urban fantasy, which is basically things like fairies and wizards and elves, but in modern day. And dealing with modern day considerations and not like high fantasy, like medieval times, but like, a changeling private investigator who has to investigate the murder of her best friend and has to navigate keeping her job as well as, being cursed and that type of thing. Which actually is the premise for one of the first series of the book series I like, which is the October Day series. October Day by Shauna McGuire. The first book is called Rosemary and Rue. I highly recommend it. Shauna's an excellent writer. But one of the things I noticed was that, there isn't a whole lot of urban fantasy representation, or really really just urban fantasy representation for people who like this type of thing who are minorities. And so I decided I was going to write an urban fantasy book taking place in Philadelphia because that's where I'm from. It's a large city center. It offers a wide variety of things that can happen there. With a young black high school girl, and she stumbles upon a dead body and kind of gets swept up in all of this. And one of the concepts is match the world of witches and cryptids, like non-human, but still like what you would call a monster, like a gorgon, a minotaur, a centaur, chupacabra, that type of thing. That they live alongside our world. We're just kind of like, we don't notice it because we're not looking for it. So she works at a cafe where you can order a raspberry scone and a strawberry lemonade with a dash of charisma for that date you have tonight. Or you can get a plate of cookies with memory charms baked into them because you have to study for a test.
Mm.
You know, that type of thing.
Interesting.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Then,
Sorry, it feels
What?
like a little bit of a mix between the Fables series and the concept for that new Will Smith series coming out called Bright.
Oh my gosh, I am so excited about that.
I was literally about to ask you, like, how excited are you? Not like, I know you're
I
excited, but how
am
much?
super. Oh my gosh, I squealed, I clapped. It is an urban fantasy TV series. It looks freaking amazing, and I'm so excited.
And it's a cop drama.
I am so excited. Oh my gosh, it looks so great. It looks so great, and it tackles like. Now see, now you asked me how excited I am, and now I'm like getting excited. And it tackles like you know, minorities and like, I forgot the word. I've been using it all day, and I forgot the word. People marginalized and like marginalized people and that whole thing, and like that's something I actually like about the October Day series too, because it tackles a lot of these inequalities, but it tackles that, and I think that's just like it's tackling it in real ways, but it's like it's fantasy, but it's real, but it's fantasy, and like that's what I really love about it.
So yeah, that's Bright. I
Alright.
think it's gonna be on Netflix, right?
It will be on Netflix. It is called Bright. For any of you guys out there who might be potentially interested in something like this, I would highly, highly suggest it. It looks amazing.
All right. That sounds like something that I'll definitely look into. I don't have Netflix though.
And we'll get it somehow. We can't. We do have Netflix in this country, though.
Yeah, but I don't have that Netflix.
Yeah.
And they also just stream it at 108p, and I have a cap that I need to last the entire month.
Yeah. Can't wait until we get fiber.
Soon. Okay. I
And as soon
think
as
that's about it for
As
now.
soon as I get
No?
fiber, we can do like games, live streaming and gaming and stuff.
I'll play you guys in Dead by Daylight.
I
Ooh.
don't have Dead by
I
Daylight.
need to buy that. I was thinking PUBG.
Oh,
I don't have PUBG. I have Dead by Daylight. I have Team Fortress 2, Left 4 Dead 1, Left 4 Dead 2.
Game for Left 4 Dead.
I know I'm boring.
Dead.
Okay, Left 4 Dead it is.
I'll
Just a fair warning, I have like 600 hours in Left 4 Dead, and I'm bossy as hell because I know the game really well.
Okay, how about we find a new game that we can all play?
Oh,
Can we call you Coach?
I am Rochelle, thank you.
I'm sorry, like
Let's go.
I'm sorry. When I'm bored, I still put on Ellis's stories about him and Keith.
Oh my god, those are hilarious.
There you go.
I love I just wish like they wouldn't interrupt him so he
Yeah.
could just keep talking.
Yeah.
I'd stay in that safe room all day just to listen
Yeah.
to his stories.
This one time, the army bombed my buddy Keith.
Like one time he was sleeping in the graveyard and he got stabbed by a ghost, but it might not have been a ghost, it might have just been a homeless person wearing a sheet with the eyes cut out. Like, oh my god, Alice.
Why does this really just sound like Game Grumps, like story time as well?
Because that's what Alice does. Like, he'll launch into like some tangentially related like thing about his buddy Keith, like on like every level, and it's just freaking hilarious. Then we never get to hear the end of the story because he's always stopped.
Yeah, I will forward you a link to some of Keith's stories, Ivik.
Please do.
Alright. What time is it? Oh,
Alright.
okay. I think it's about.
It is time.
Yeah, I think
It
it is
is
about
late.
time we start wrapping it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Witchy, this has been a ton of fun. Thank you so much for rocking up today.
It's my pleasure. If you guys want to have me back again, like just for in general, I'd be more than happy to do so.
Yeah.
Oh.
We should definitely have you on more often.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
I almost want to say
What you were saying?
let's chat after Bright aired, and then we'll see how it goes from there, how it fits into your purview of urban fantasy and like what it tackles, what it misses, that kind of stuff.
That would be really cool, especially since I'm trying to do more research into urban fantasy for my book. And I've got
Sweet.
like 3 other books in the wings. So I'm just sort of like, I can only work on so many at a time.
Have you played Shadowrun? I don't know if that's like sort of in
I
your.
have not played Shadowrun. I probably should.
I think that might be worthy like material to add to your catalog.
I will definitely have to look into it. I'm a little obsessed with Dead by Daylight right now. I like the asymmetrical horror thing, but we'll see.
Asymmetrical gameplay is always fun.
Wait, hold on. Is Dead by Daylight that like you play the um what's the word? You play the villain and then there's like 5 survivors.
There's 4, but yes.
Yeah.
You can play it. You have 1 killer and 4 survivors. They're trying to activate generators to get out, and the killer's just trying to kill them all.
And it glitches out every now and again where the like killer just like flies off into the middle of nowhere and then just like floats off of the maps everywhere
That
and
happened to me.
dies.
That happened to me. I was okay. Quick story, and I will provide you guys with the link to provide to your viewers at the end of this. But I was in a I think I was in a kill your friends with a bunch of friends of mine, and we actually the video starts off with something that we ended up glitching. I pulled our friend Devin out of a locker at the same time he was jumping out, and he got stuck floating in midair as if he was on the shoulder of my killer, but he wasn't there. So he was
Oh
just like
no.
wiggling in midair, unable to move. He was just like, as he put it, quote, I look like a fucking antelope, like grazing in the savannah, like just trying to wiggle. And so while we were trying to recreate it for the video to see exactly how it was done, because this was the second time in 2 days this had happened to me and my friend.
Lol.
Um, I take one of the guys out of the locker and I back up. And then from Devin's perspective, you just see me go flying backwards off the map, like just
Oh no.
disappear like 2 rockets blasting off again. And I
Oh
flew out
wow.
the map 3 times before the person wiggled off my shoulder, and we were finally deposited back in the map. But it was so ridiculous, and
Oh boy.
it was so funny, and I'm so happy it was caught on video. I will send you guys the link because it is really funny.
Awesome.
Huh. Okay, we'll definitely have a look at that, and we'll post it in when this story comes out. Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we'll definitely have you on again sometime. And I mean, again, games with friends always sounds like a good idea to do as soon as Scratch has his fiber up and running.
Yay.
I think that'll be awesome.
Mm.
Provided
Then we
again
can
with
Twitch stream it. Yeah.
something like that.
Yay, Twitch.
All them donations. Something.
Send us money.
Alrighty, guys.
Alright.
Good
Yeah.
night for myself, Ivik,
Night from
and
Scratch.
good night.
And good night from
Witchy
Witchy.
Bunny.
See you
See
guys.
you guys soon.
Just